It begins quietly. Nobody notices at first. You're 7 years old, looking into the eyes of a parent who's falling apart. Maybe it's addiction. Maybe it's rage. Maybe it's just the empty silence of someone too broken to show up. And, without words, something ancient activates in your young mind. If I don't keep everything together, no one will. This is how a child vanishes. Not physically, but emotionally. They smile more, they cry less. They learn to read the room before they speak. They become the emotional temperature gauge of the house. They turn into small adults long before their minds are ready. And the world praises them for it. You're so mature. You're so responsible. You're so strong. But no one ever pauses to ask, at what cost? This is the unseen grief of those who grew up too soon. And today we're going deep inside the psychology of that child, because the effects don't fade with age. They mold you. They follow you into relationships, careers, your sense of worth. And if you don't understand what happened, you'll spend your adult life repeating the same survival patterns that once protected you, but are now quietly destroying you. Let's begin with what's really happening developmentally. When children are forced to emotionally care for adults instead of being cared for, psychologists call this parentification. It's when a child becomes the caregiver, the peacekeeper, the therapist, the protector. This isn't just unhealthy. It rewires the brain. Because when a child is consistently put in charge of emotional regulation, whether their own or someone else's, it creates something called hypervigilance. You're always scanning for danger. You tiptoe around tension. You learn that love is an exchange. You give peace, and maybe they'll give you safety. You learn that your needs are dangerous and theirs are urgent. So you disappear, not physically but internally, and in you, place grows a version of you that knows how to perform. You become the good child, the quiet achiever, the therapist, friend, the one who never asks for anything. And you wear that identity so perfectly that even you forget it's a mask. But deep down, something aches, something hurts, because the inner child you buried never died. They're still in there, screaming silently, "Why didn't anyone protect me?" As you grow older, the symptoms become more layered. You might turn hyper-independent. You push people away, reject help, or never truly feel safe in love. You might feel numb during joyful moments because happiness feels foreign, undeserved, even threatening. You might struggle to rest because productivity is the only way you've ever felt valuable. And worst of all, you might not even realize you're still living in survival mode. Because when dysfunction is introduced early, your nervous system accepts chaos as normal. Stillness feels uneasy. Peace feels suspicious. Love feels like a debt you'll eventually have to repay. This is the psychology of a child who had to grow up too soon. It's not just sadness. It's a deep trauma that reshapes how you see the world, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Now you may wonder, why would any child willingly take on that role? Because children will do anything for attachment, even if it means abandoning themselves. The choice isn't conscious, it's instinctive. In the absence of safety, the child trades authenticity for connection. That's not weakness, that's survival, that's intelligence. But here's the tragedy. What once saved you is now the thing that keeps you trapped. So many of us are walking around as high-functioning adults with neglected inner children quietly steering the wheel. We overachieve to earn love. We stay silent to avoid rejection. We take care of everyone else, but secretly wish someone would finally ask if we're okay. And that quiet fantasy, that someone will see through your strength, notice your exhaustion, and offer you a place to collapse, that isn't the wish of your adult self. It's the cry of the child who never got to be a child. The first step to healing isn't fixing, it's witnessing. Because until you validate what truly happened, you'll keep gaslighting yourself with thoughts like, it wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. I turned out fine. But fine is just another disguise. And deep down, you already know it. So what happens to that child when they grow up? They become adults who never feel safe, even in peaceful rooms. They become partners who can't trust tenderness. They become givers who can't receive. They become people who apologize for crying, flinch at kindness, and mistake exhaustion for success. This is the cost of growing up too soon. Because if your childhood taught you to be strong instead of soft, quiet instead of honest, and to fix others while ignoring your own wounds, then what kind of adulthood do you inherit? You inherit a life where you're always holding your breath, waiting for someone to finally give you permission to fall apart. But here's the truth. No one's coming to rescue the child you buried. You are the one who has to go back and hold their hand. You are the one who must say what no one ever said. You didn't deserve that. You were just a child. You get to rest now. This is the beginning of shadow work. Not fixing, not pretending, not covering the pain with fake positivity, but turning toward the forgotten parts of yourself and saying, I see you now, I hear you now, and I'm not leaving. That's what true repair looks like. And it's difficult because it asks you to feel the grief you never had space to feel. It asks you to sit with the anger, the sadness, the unmet needs, to cry for the birthdays where no one came, to mourn the innocence you lost protecting people who should have protected you. But that grief isn't weakness. It's evidence that you're healing. Because what was once frozen inside you is finally melting. Now, let's explore how this survival pattern quietly shows up in adulthood. Subtle, painful, and often unseen. You might turn into the therapist in every friendship, but never allow anyone to truly see you. You might be celebrated for your independence, when deep down you're terrified of being a burden. You might find yourself in relationships where you overfunction, constantly fixing, managing, explaining, and wondering why you feel so resentful. You might struggle to set boundaries because saying no still feels like betrayal. These aren't personality traits. They're coping mechanisms, learned, practiced, and thankfully unlearnable. But only when you stop worshiping your strength and start honoring your wounds. One of the most powerful things you can ask yourself is, what did I need back then that I never received? You might hear answers like, I needed someone to tell me it wasn't my fault. I needed someone to ask how I was really doing. I needed to play, to rest, to laugh, without fear. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to give those things to yourself. Not to rewrite your past, but to stop reliving it. This is how you stop searching for parents in your partners. This is how you stop confusing anxiety with intuition. This is how you stop running from the child you were and start becoming the person you were meant to be. Carl Jung once said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But shadow work demands that we face it, all of it. The ashamed, the neglected, the frightened, the furious. Because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. So if you're someone who had to grow up too soon, hear this. Your maturity was never the problem. The problem was that you didn't have a choice. But now, you do. You can choose softness. You can choose rest. You can choose to stop managing everyone else's emotions and start honoring your own. And no, it won't happen overnight. There will be days you feel small again. Good. That's the point. Let that child come home. Let them cry. Let them play. Let them finally be seen. Because you're not broken. You're becoming whole. And maybe, for the first time, you're growing up the right way. Not through fear, not through pressure, but through truth. You never had a childhood, but you still have a future. And this time, you get to write it. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means finally understanding it, seeing the patterns for what they are, not who you are. Because what happened to you was never your fault, but healing from it is your responsibility. You begin by slowing down, by breathing through the discomfort instead of running from it, by recognizing that strength isn't about holding it all together, it's about learning when to let go. Some days, that might look like crying for no reason. Other days, it might mean saying no to things that once felt safe, like overworking, overgiving, or pretending you're fine. Healing is messy. It's not a straight line. It's a slow remembering of who you were before the masks, before the silence, before the survival. You start realizing that peace doesn't mean everything's perfect. It means you're no longer fighting yourself. You stop seeking validation from others and start offering compassion to the parts of you that never had any. And when you do, something shifts. That heavy armor you've been carrying begins to fall away. You start to laugh again, not because everything's fixed, but because you finally feel safe enough to. You start to rest, not out of exhaustion, but out of trust that the world won't collapse if you stop holding it up. This is the quiet revolution of healing. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's a slow homecoming. To the child who disappeared too soon, you made it. You survived what should have broken you. But now it's time to do more than survive. It's time to live. To love without fear. To rest without guilt. To exist without earning your right to breathe. Because the truth is, you were never too sensitive, too emotional, or too much. You were just a child who carried too heavy a load. And now, finally, you can put it down. So when you look in the mirror, don't see someone broken. See someone brave enough to come back for themselves. That's the real strength. That's healing. That's freedom.